I just got back from reporting in Boston, where I had the chance to gauge public sentiment in the wake of the bombings. A little more than 1 month ago, Boston was rocked by 2 explosions at one of the most popular annual events in the city, the Boston Marathon. Tragically, this senseless act of violence claimed 3 lives and injured 264 others. In the days following, the perpetrators and motive for the attack remained completely unknown. Yet the corporate media didn't hesitate to speculate wildly with 24/7 on-the-ground coverage. Finally, surveillance photos surfaced, allegedly identifying 2 suspects, the Tsarnaev brothers. And what followed was the largest manhunt this country has ever seen. 9,000 law enforcement officers donned in paramilitary gear were dispatched across the city. Dozens of SWAT teams and bomb squads were deployed, and entire sections of the city and surrounding areas were cordoned off for police activities. Armored vehicles and tanks were sent to patrol the streets of residential neighborhoods. And militarized police officers moved door to door in the nearby city of Watertown, sometimes forcing entry into people's homes to search the premises. Being from D.C. and watching this all unfold from afar, I had my own thoughts and questions about what happened and why. But once in Boston, I wanted to see what people who lived through it thought about the overwhelming show of force in response to the bombings. And here's what they had to say. Do you agree with the police response to hunt down the Tsarnaev brothers in the wake of the Boston bombings?
Yes, I do. I really do. I think they've done a really, really good job. I was amazed at how quickly everything came down.
I'm a student here. I definitely think the police were heroic and handled it very well.
I think the police response was absolutely fantastic.
The way they came in, they did very well. They came in real fast. It was like a movie.
They had to make a choice, and they went with it.
9,000 paramilitary troops in the streets shutting down the city. Do you think that was an adequate response?
I think that's all they could do. Of course, I mean, it should have been done prior to there should have been more security probably.
Maybe next time they won't have to have 9,000, but I think the approach was right. Certainly was a studied approach.
Did they come in and do the searches in your neighborhood?
We were a little bit away from, but my brother's home was right in the neighborhood. They did go in and search his home, his backyard. They did a tremendous job.
It seemed like we responded with overwhelming force, and everybody did the job that they were supposed to do. I mean, obviously raises questions about when and where we choose to show our force.
It raises questions indeed. Like, did any of this activity violate the constitutional rights of Boston residents? And is this something that's going to be used as a blueprint nationwide? Well, I had the opportunity to talk to the executive director of the National Lawyers Guild of Boston, Ursula Masny-Latos, about just that. And this is what she had to say.
The National Lawyers Guild and everyone in the guild feels that the response of the city to this tragedy was beyond anything that we should accept as a society. During the whole week after the marathon bombing, the city felt almost like being under martial law. And especially Thursday evening and Friday, we feel that martial law was imposed on the city without going through regular procedure. So in our opinion, searches that happen in Watertown, locking down the city, getting people out of their homes, very often at gunpoint, we feel that all this was unnecessary and violated people's constitutional rights.
You know, it's interesting. Another point that she made is, what happens if illegal drugs were found in a home during these door-to-door searches? Could what was found be used against innocent people? Where's the line drawn in a situation like this? I completely understand the emotion of fear and what it can do to people. And speaking directly to Bostonians gave me more insight on their perspective. However, people die every day from senseless acts of violence, and treat certain acts of violence with extreme disproportionality only feeds into that fear. That fear breeds acquiescence and the relinquishing of our rights that our forefathers spent thousands of years trying to achieve. But perhaps the even bigger picture is this. As horrifically tragic as the Boston bombings were, it was a relatively small attack in comparison to something like 9/11. So right now is when we should ask ourselves, if what we saw in response to bombs was that, what would the response be in the wake of something bigger? Is that when we'll see martial law take effect across the country? And more importantly, will people just accept it entirely out of fear? I shudder to think.